What's up, Fantasy Nation? Welcome to the NFL Wildcard Weekend here. I am, of course, your host, the fantasy umpire, Danny Kitchen. Last week, we had a special guest with us, Keith Schillen from SureDog, and he couldn't join us this week, but we're hoping that he becomes a staple on the weekly show. And I think as we look ahead to next year, I think Keith and I are going to try to do this every single week, every Thursday. If work becomes a little bit tough, then maybe we push it back to a Friday or Saturday morning show, but we're looking at a weekly show every Thursday and then maybe doing a recap show on Mondays if both of us have enough time. Of course, we both have full-time jobs on top of this, so it's tough. It's, pretty much all of our Saturday morning is dedicated to research and trying to help you guys out and help you win your fantasy matchups. So we'll do the best we can next year, but in the meantime, let's finish this year strong. Of course, fantasy football is pretty much over. If you're still in a fantasy league that heads into the playoffs, the actual playoffs of the NFL, that is just wild. I wouldn't recommend it. But if you're in DFS leagues, if you are just quite simply a sports gambler, you enjoy a little sports betting, then this is your show, because I'm going to be covering all the money lines, spreads, over-unders. I'll give you guys some fun player prop bets. And, of course, we'll look ahead to our Super Bowl picks at the end of this episode as well. So let's jump right into it. We are now, 2.5 hours from kickoff of the opening wildcard weekend game, the Las Vegas Raiders going to Cincinnati. A couple of notes on all of these games as a whole. We have two divisional matchups this weekend, Patriots going to Buffalo, and then, of course, the Cardinals at the LA Rams. Raiders, Bengals, Eagles, Bucks, and Steelers, Chiefs are all rematches from the regular season. So we have quite a bit of data to go off of from their previous matchups. And then the 49ers and Cowboys are the only teams that haven't already played each other this year. So that's one of the matchups that I really can't wait to see. Get your popcorn ready for that game. A lot of offense, probably very little defense. And as long as Jimmy G can kind of control the ball and not turn it over, I expect the Niners to stay right in that game all the way to the end. But let's jump right into it. Saturday night, 4:30 kickoff Eastern time. We've got the Las Vegas Raiders coming off that win over the LA Chargers, 35-32, probably the game of the year. If it isn't, then go ahead and comment below in this video and let me know what is, because that was, in my opinion, that was by far the best game of the year, potentially the best game in a number of years. I can't recall a better finish. And when you toss in the fact that it almost ended in a tie and kicked the Steelers out of the playoffs, that was just the added dimension that I don't know. To me, the game of the week, game of the year, potentially, like I said, best game I've seen in a long time. They are going to Cincinnati, taking on the Bengals. Bengals coming off that tough loss to Cleveland. Of course, they didn't play any of their starters. It was a fairly meaningless game for them, but nonetheless, tough loss. They almost pulled it off. I think it was 16-21 was the final score there. I'm going to take the Bengals money line in this game. Give me them to also cover the 5.5 point spread at home. I'm going to go over at 48.5 points. To me, the key here is the Raiders are coming off that big win over the Chargers, and I think it's going to take a lot of energy out of them. They're going to be fatigued mentally and physically in this one. Rich Bisaccia has got them playing hard. Nobody really expects them to win, so they've got the underdog narrative for sure. But to me, Cincinnati hasn't won a playoff game in 31 years. The team is starving for a deep playoff run, but especially a playoff win in their first one in 31 years. Raiders are they've been to the playoffs only twice since going to the Super Bowl back in 2002. So they're not too much further behind than the Raiders, or than the Raiders. So, than Cincinnati. So both teams looking for the playoff win here. I think Cincinnati is one of the few teams in the NFL that really has a chance to go all the way. I think that they're one of the few teams that can put up a fight with the Kansas City Chiefs. So look for them to win this game pretty easily and move on. And I'm hoping and praying for Bengals and Chiefs AFC title game. That would be incredible. In the first meeting between these two teams, Cincinnati won 32-13. That was back in week 11. That game was really only close until the fourth quarter, and then they pulled away. It was pretty much a blowout from that point on. So I expect more of the same. I think the Raiders come out and maybe keep this one close early on, but this is going to be a big Joe Mixon game. Cincinnati's going to have no trouble running the ball on this defense. We saw what the Chargers did to the Raiders' run defense last week and just absolutely torched them. Eckler just looked like an animal. So I think more of the same here, at least game plan wise, from the Bengals. Derek Carr, one thing to note with him, he's 0-5 as a starter in games where the kickoff temp was 37 degrees or less. So he's clearly not a good cold weather quarterback. He's never scored more than 17 points in those games, and he finished only one of them with a passer rating over 78. So he hates cold weather. That team plays in a dome. They're coming off that game in the dome where they're very comfortable. This is going to be a different story. Weather in this one, we're looking at 34 degrees, 10-mile-per-hour winds. So it's right in that wheelhouse. He's 0-5. I don't think he's going to buck that trend and knock off one of the hottest teams in football here in the Bengals. If they do, they're going to need to score a lot to keep up. So I do expect a decent game from Darren Waller and those guys. I think Renfro's going to have a monster game as well, but it's just not going to be enough, guys. Cincinnati's going to impose their will on them in the run game. That's going to open up play action passing. I think we see a lot of T. Higgins in this one, as well as, of course, Jamar Chase, the superstar rookie wide receiver. A couple of key matchups, like I said, Mixon against this run defense. They were just shredded by the Chargers, more of the same there. And then one thing to keep an eye on, Tyler Boyd going up against the slot cornerback for the Raiders, Casey Hayward. Casey's got that ankle injury he's dealing with, but he's still going to play. And I do expect him to kind of, I don't think that it's a total dud game from Boyd, but don't expect what we've seen over the last few weeks from him. And I certainly think this offense is going to run through Mixon. If it does go in the air, it's going to be Chase and Higgins. A couple player prop bets that I like. Rushing yards, I like Mixon to go over 75.5. Receiving yards, Renfro's going to hit that 55.5 yard mark, and Waller over 61.5. He looked great. Waller looked fine last week. Carr just barely missed him on a couple of throws in that game against the Chargers. So I think they right the ship here. Waller's going to be a big reason if and why the Raiders hang around in this game. So if you are a Raiders believer, give me the over on both of those. If you think Cincinnati is going to just completely blow them out, then you got to temper expectations with the pass catchers. But I think the Raiders are going to be playing catch-up ball here. Even if they don't win, even if they get blown out, they're going to have to throw, and those are going to be the two main weapons for Carr. Anytime touchdown bets for me, it's Waller. On the Raiders side of things, for Cincy, Joe Mixon's your safe bet. No real injuries of note, which is kind of refreshing. A couple minor injuries, but nothing big. Players that were dinged up throughout the week are going to play in this one. Give it a go. Moving on to our Saturday night game, 8:15 p.m. Eastern time kickoff. We have the New England Patriots coming off that beatdown against Miami. Miami beat them 33-24. They are traveling to Buffalo, coming off that win over the Jets 27-10. It wasn't as lopsided as the scoreboard made it seem. The Jets actually hung around in that one, but the Bills took care of business late. Give me the Bills to win this game. I'll take them in the money line. I think they cover the 4.5-point spread as well. I'm going to take the over at 44 points. I think there's more points in this one than people want to believe. Of course, the first two matchups between these two teams were very different. One of them was in Buffalo. New England won that game. The other was in New England, and Buffalo won that game. So the road team has won both games this year. But I expect the Bills to take care of business. Of course, whenever you see Bill Belichick, he's going to have a game plan to keep it close. That it's just not an easy bet. You don't want to bet against the Pats. But to me, rookie quarterback, Buffalo, January weather. To me, I'm sticking with the Bills in this one. Like I said, in the first meeting, everything went the Pats' way, and they won. Second meeting, Bills dominated start to finish. They beat them 33-21 in Foxborough. One thing to note here, Josh Allen is coming in on a bit of a slump. If he couldn't really get it going against the Jets and Falcons, you might be wondering, is he going to get it going against the Patriots? I think he will. The Bills are facing the Pats right off the bat in the playoffs, and that might be a good thing for this team in the long run. I think they get to exercise some of those demons immediately, and that's going to be good for them. And especially, I think this will be a deep playoff run for them. I think they match up really well with Cincinnati, not so well with the Chiefs, but I still think that's an upset that they could pull off. Also, the Bills increased their use of a sixth lineman to kind of help with the run game. So we've seen a resurgence there with the Bills run game. Devin Singletary looks a lot better. So expect to see more of that in this game as well. Weather, I touched on that. It's Buffalo, January. It's going to be bad. Single digit temps. Looks like only 5 mile per hour winds expected in this one. So nothing too crazy, just a cold Buffalo game. Key matchups, J.C. Jackson's going to be draped all over Stephon Diggs. Don't expect too much from him. Jalen Mills is going to be on Gabriel Davis and Emmanuel Sanders. So I like that matchup a little bit better. Of course, Dawson Knox and Cole Beasley is going to be Josh Allen's safety net. So expect them to get a lot of work or at least a lot of targets in this game. Patriots, I expect them to attack the Bills' run defense. A big game coming for Damian Harris and Ramondre Stevenson. Gregory Rousseau, he's going to be an impact player in this game as well for the Bills' pass rush. Isaiah Wynn for the Patriots, the star left tackle, he is out with a hip and ankle injury. So expecting Justin Heron to get the start. I think the Bills are going to exploit that matchup all day long, and it's going to be a long day for Mac Jones if Rousseau gets going early. Couple of player prop bets I really like. Anytime touchdowns for Gabriel Davis and Dawson Knox. Love both of those guys in this one. I like Dawson Knox to also clear his 29.5-yard prop bet. Brandon Bolden's kind of a fun bet for me. 16.5 yards receiving as a running back. He is their running back on passing downs. He's their go-to guy. I think James White, obviously not quite as explosive and not used as much as White was back during, back in the Tom Brady days. But still, nonetheless, they're going to need a lot of checkdowns against this Bills defense. And so I expect Brandon Bolden to catch 3 or 4 passes, and I would expect 3 or 4 catches to go well over 16.5 yards. Rushing prop for me is Ramondre Stevenson. Hammer that 41.5-yard total all day long. He's looked much better to me. Damian Harris is not quite right. He's still dinged up. And so I think Stevenson is the beneficiary there in the run game for the Patriots. Moving on to our Sunday slate at 1 o'clock Eastern time, we have the Philadelphia Eagles coming off that tough loss to Dallas, 26-51, just a total beat down. They are traveling to Tampa Bay to take on the Buccaneers. Bucs coming off that win over Carolina, 41-17. They just took care of business, and they provided us with a very funny Tom Brady meme where he was apparently being told the scores of the other games that were keeping Tampa Bay's hopes alive of a home field advantage. So if you haven't seen that, check that out. I'm going to take the Bucs money line here. I think they also cover the 8-point spread. Just a brutal matchup for the Eagles. I can't believe they got the Bucs on the road in the first round. That's just terrible. Give me the over at 46 points. A lot of offense, especially on the Tampa Bay side of things. Philadelphia is going to have to throw. They're not going to be able to run on this defense. So expect them to air it out, which is going to lead to either points for them on offense or points for the Bucs defense. Their first matchup, Tampa Bay won 28-22. That was in Philadelphia. So they combined for 50 total points, hence me taking the over in Tampa Bay at 46. I think it's a no-brainer. Brady threw for 297 yards in that first game, 2 touchdowns. Leonard Fournette ran for 81 yards on the ground, 2 touchdowns himself. Jalen Hurts threw for 115 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. But he also did add 44 yards on the ground with 2 touchdowns there. One thing to note, his wide receiver that day, or leading wide receiver that day, was Quez Watkins with 3 catches for 44 yards. So that's a name to kind of file away if you're into the receiving yards prop bets in this one. I think Quez Watkins hits that. But this is just, like I said, this is a bad matchup for the Eagles. They're coming in as a run-first offense, and they know that they're playing the top run defense in the league. So Nick Sirianni needs to realize that and air it out. That's the only way they have a shot. They need to concede the run and just try to trust Jalen Hurts as much as you can. You do have a good pass blocking O-line, so let's air it out. Give Devontae Smith and some of these young wide receivers a chance, and you're gonna, like I said, you're gonna have to throw to hang around in this game. If if this is a huge if, but if Jalen Hurts struggles early, if they stick to the run and Hurts just isn't finding a rhythm, we may see some Gardner Minshew in this game. They may turn to him if this is a blowout early, or if Hurts just simply doesn't have it in this one. We may see some Gardner Minshew. We know that he's not afraid to air it out, and he's looked very good in the few snaps that we've seen him late in the season. Weather in this game, 65 degrees, rain, 15-mile-per-hour winds. Probably one of the ugliest games in terms of weather this week, but still doesn't really scare you. It's high temps, moderate winds, 15-mile-per-hour winds. Doesn't scare you too much. If it jumps up to 20 at kickoff, that's a different story. And the rain is just, light Tampa rain, your typical scattered storms. Key matchups in this game, Eagles aren't really going to be able to run the ball. Like I said, the way to beat Tampa is through the air. So we'll just have to wait and see. Are they going to trust Hurts or not? That's the key matchup. Philadelphia, their pass defense is pretty solid. So I do expect Tampa Bay to lean on the run game here. Could be a big day for Leonard Fournette, both on the ground and in the air. He's averaged 4.9 catches per game this season. No Chris Godwin, no Antonio Brown. Some of those wide receivers are dinged up. And the Eagles allow 6.7 catches per game to running backs in the season. That's second most in the NFL. So all signs are pointing towards a big game for Fournette, both on the ground and in the air. On the Philly side of things, Dallas Goedert should have plenty of work in this one. I think Philly's going to look to get the ball out of Jalen's hands fairly quickly. So a lot of checkdowns to the running backs, a lot of dump offs there, and look for a lot of tight end targets, which will be funneled to Dallas Goedert. Player prop bets that I like, anytime touchdowns. Scotty Miller is an interesting one for me, depending on where you get him. If you play FanDuel or DraftKings, I like the odds there. He's going to get some work, guys. I also like his receiving prop bet right now in FanDuel at 8.5 yards. That's one catch for Scotty. He's going to get some playing time. I expect him to see right around 30 to 40% of the snaps. So fire up both of those bets for me. Kenneth Gainwell's another one on the Philadelphia side. He's looked the best out of their running back group. Tyler Johnson, anytime touchdown, Brashad Perriman, and Devontae Smith. All of those guys I like for kind of, I wouldn't call them all Hail Mary touchdown prop bets, but those are the deeper dives. Of course, you've got Gronk and Mike Evans. Those are the slam dunks, but they're not going to pay out quite as well. Passing yard prop bet I like is Tom Brady, 268.5 yards. I touched on their first game of the season where Brady threw for 297 and 2 touchdowns. It's going to be more of the same. He might even find more success at home. So 268.5 yards is way too low. I like the over on the Gronk receiving prop at 58.5 yards, Devontae Smith at 43.5 yards, and Tyler Johnson at 32.5 yards receiving. Give me the over on all of those. Couple injuries of note. Shaq Barrett is back for Tampa Bay. Gio Bernard and Leonard Fournette with his hamstring. They are both back and playing. Ronald Jones is out in this game with his ankle injury. Levante David is back for Tampa Bay. Sounds like Cyril Grayson is going to be out with his hamstring injury, and Miles Sanders with his hand injury is going to be playing as well. So let's move on. Sunday, 4:30 Eastern time. We've got the San Francisco 49ers coming off that win over the LA Rams. That was one of the best games of the week. They are traveling to Dallas to take on the Cowboys, coming off that big win over Philadelphia, 51-26, absolute beatdown in Philly. I'm going to take the Cowboys. They're going to keep rolling here. Give me them in the money line. I think the Niners do cover the 3-point spread. I'm seeing it right around 3.5, 4 points on other sites. I took the 3 points on FanDuel. That's a slam dunk to me. This is going to come down to a game-winning field goal one way or the other. The Cowboys have been publicly scrutinizing their special teams, especially their kicker, Greg Zerloin. So I think all signs are pointing towards the game coming down to Greg the Leg. I think he makes the field goal to win the game. I'm going to say Cowboys win this one 25-23, 2-point win. You know what? I'm gonna go over that. I'm gonna say 27-25, mostly because I took the over at 50.5 points. So give me the over in this one. I think there's gonna be a lot of offense. This is gonna be a fun game. I touched on it earlier. This is the one game where these two teams have not met yet this season. So they're not familiar with each other. It's kind of one of those rivalries from the 80s and 90s. And we're hoping that this game kind of rejuvenates that, revitalizes that. rivalry. We're going to need mistake-free football from Jimmy G if the Niners have a shot, and I think we're going to get that today. On the Dallas side of things, death, taxes, and Mike McCarthy, football teams choking. It's, you look at his track record, any team that this guy has coached, they choke, especially in the big game in the playoffs. So I don't know. Is this going to be an anomaly? Are the Cowboys going to crack the code here? Maybe. To me, San Francisco just has so many playmakers on offense, and Dallas's defense has been so prone to giving up the big plays. But then you look at the Dallas roster, right? It's as good as any in the playoffs. They're built like a Super Bowl team. Can they now play like a Super Bowl team? We'll see about that. Dak is 1-2 in his career in the playoffs. They barely beat Seattle in that one playoff win. So I don't have a lot of confidence in Dak, but this is the best surrounding cast that he has ever played with. And like I said, this team has Super Bowl aspirations. They have one of the best rosters. Can they put it all together here? A couple of injuries. Michael Gallup, of course, lost for the year. Their running backs are a little dinged up, but for the most part, they're coming in fairly healthy in this one. One note here, Deebo Samuel finished the year with 779 yards after the catch, trailing only Cooper Kupp, and we know that he had a historic season. Kupp had 846 yards after the catch. So, that's impressive, but even more impressive when you consider the fact that Kupp had almost double the amount of receptions that Samuel did, 146 to Samuel's 77. So, Deebo is just a yak monster. I think we see that in full effect in this game. He's going to be heavily involved in that game plan, both as a running back and a wide receiver. They find ways to manufacture touches for Deebo and, stick to what got you here, San Francisco. Don't get cute and feed Deebo because he is just a menace in the open field. Weather in this game, of course, is in Dallas, 50 degrees, 5-mile-per-hour winds. I don't know if they're going to have it open or closed. But anyway, nice weather. Regardless, key matchups, Dallas needs to run the ball, and their running backs are a little dinged up, as I touched upon earlier. Strength of San Francisco's defense is the run defense, so what's going to give here? Dallas is going to try to run. San Fran's defense is going to try to shut that down. One of those two is going to give. Fred Warner and Nick Bosa against this Dallas O-line and Dalton Schultz, two of the best defensive players in the league. Dallas's O-line is getting healthy at the right time. So let's just see, like I said, get your popcorn ready. I think it's going to be a lot of offense, not a lot of defense, but those are the two guys to keep your eye on for San Francisco's defense. And then one note here for the Cowboys target share. Over the last 5 weeks, Amari Cooper with 37 targets, CeeDee Lamb with 30, and right in between those two, Dalton Schultz at 33. So he is the number 2 target share leader of that team, 33 targets over the last 5 weeks. If he's not an elite tight end, I don't know what he is because he's certainly seen the volume. Some player prop bets I like in this game. Anytime touchdowns, Kyle Juszczyk, one of my favorite fullbacks. You can bet him right now at plus 650 anytime touchdown. I like that a lot. He's going to see some work in this game, and he usually sees some work down close to the goal line. Dak Prescott at plus 400. I like him to run for a touchdown. And Brandon Ayuk at plus 195. Two others that I like, Cedric Wilson at plus 190, George Kittle at plus 140. Those are kind of, those are, I wouldn't call them surefire bets, but those are pretty safe plays for sure. Passing yard props that I like for Dak, really, it's all Dak here. Give me the over at 74 yards and 1.5 passing touchdowns for him. I think he has a field day against the San Francisco secondary. And as far as receiving yards go, give me the Juszczyk over at 8.5 yards and Kittle over 51.5. I also like Eli Mitchell over 8.5 yards and CeeDee Lamb over his 62.5 yard prop. Give me Dak over 7.5 rushing yards. And that's pretty much it for me as far as, I just don't trust the running game. Eli Mitchell should have a good game here. But, as far as Dallas goes, who knows? Tony Pollard's back. I think they're going to use him more in the passing game, but he may steal some of Zeke's work. And, Zeke's just one of those guys, man. If he gets dinged up in the middle of the game, he's a tough prop bet for me to trust. But if you want to place the Zeke anytime touchdown bet, that's probably a safe play as well. A couple injuries of note. Blake Jarwin is back for Dallas. He is by far the best run blocking tight end on this team. As I mentioned, Zeke and Pollard dinged up, but they're both going to play. And then Trent Williams is back for San Francisco. He had that elbow injury that kept him out of last week's game. He's going to play in this one. All right, a couple of games left here. Sunday night, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers coming off that big win over Baltimore that propelled them into the playoffs, 16-13. They are traveling to Kansas City to take on the Chiefs. Chiefs coming off that big win over Denver, 28-24. Give me the Chiefs money line in this one. I think they also cover the spread, 12.5 points. And I'm going to take the over at 46 for this game. I think this is a retirement party for Big Ben. Najee Harris didn't practice much this week. And really the best chance for the Steelers team to win would be relying on the run game. And your top dog, your bell cow running back, is not healthy right now. So not looking good for the Steelers. Really, their only chances if they go for it on multiple fourth downs. They're not going to be able to settle for field goals in this game, and they can't just continue to punt and try to play the field the field position game. It's not going to work against Kansas City. You look at that game against Baltimore. Big Ben showed that he can and will dig deep in a potential last game of his career. But totally different. Baltimore's secondary is dinged up. It's well documented just how bad they have been, especially late in the season. And this Chiefs defense is no joke. This is a Super Bowl team. They know that. The Steelers know that. Pat Mahomes has seen this Steelers defense twice this year and completely dominated them. TJ Watt and Cam Hayward simply don't scare him at all. The Chiefs beat them 36-10, I think it was, earlier this year. So I'm expecting a similar type game. I don't think they're going to win by 26 points, but wouldn't be surprised at all if they win by 15 or more. Revenge game for Melvin Ingram, I guess. Weather in this game, 35 degrees, 10-mile-per-hour winds, nothing big here. It's typical Kansas City January weather. Player prop bets that I like. Give me the anytime touchdown for Pat Freiermuth, Derek Gore, Travis Kelce, and Jerick McKinnon. Give me the receiving yard prop bet over for Pat Freiermuth at 31.5 yards. Kelce, give me the over at 69.5, and give me the over at 60.5 total yards for Deontay Johnson. Couple injuries of note. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is out, and Darrell Williams will play, but keep in mind, Williams is also dinged up in this game. Kansas City is clearly better when Williams is starting in the backfield, but I just don't know how healthy he is. He's going to start. He's going to play. I'm sure he has a decent game, but if Kansas City gets out to an early lead, don't be surprised if we see some Jerick McKinnon in this game, and we know how good he can be, even in small doses. So he's kind of a fun player prop bet for anytime touchdown and yard overs. And then the final game of the week here, Monday Night Football, 8:15 p.m. Eastern Time. This is going to be a fun one, guys. Arizona Cardinals coming off that loss to Seattle, 30-38, traveling to Los Angeles, taking on division rivals Rams. Rams are coming off that loss to the 49ers. Fantastic game, but they just totally blew it in the end. Matthew Stafford is just losing confidence in a lot of people, including myself right now. I just don't know if he has it right now. And I don't know how healthy he is. He's got that back injury, of course, from past seasons. He's dealing with a toe injury, I believe, ankle injury this season. So he's very dinged up. I'm going to take the Cardinals. I think the Cardinals cover the spread easily, 4 points, even on the road. It's in a dome, guys. And the Rams don't really have a clear home field advantage. We kind of saw that last week with the 49ers traveling to Los Angeles, and they just took over SoFi Stadium. I like the Cardinals to cover the 4-point spread. I think they win this game outright, and give me the under at 49.5 points. I think this is going to be kind of an ugly game. I mentioned the injuries, both teams dealing with some serious injuries right now. So I don't trust this. I don't trust either offense, Without D-Hop, the Cardinals just haven't looked the same. They've clearly been struggling without that go-to number one alpha wide receiver. And James Conner, he's got the rib injury. Chase Edmonds banged up as well. I think they're going to have to rely on Zach Ertz, Antoine Wesley, AJ Green, Christian Kirk. They're all going to have to step up. Rondale Moore. This is a rubber match. Arizona beat the Rams earlier in the season, then the Rams came back and beat the Cards. I think this is a big Cam Akers game. He looked great in his return from that Achilles tear last week. I think he's back, guys. Fire him up in DFS lineups. I like him a lot and on all of his player prop bets, but give me the anytime Cam Akers touchdown. I'm going to hammer that this week. He and Sony are going to split touches, but Cam just looks more explosive right now, and they're going to need some explosive plays to keep up with this Arizona offense. But again, this is going to be an ugly game. I don't really know what to expect, but I do think Arizona is going to come out on top. Weather's not a factor here. Game's in a dome. Key matchups, Odell, Kupp, Van Jefferson, they're all going to eat in this game. The Cardinals secondary is pretty bad. Cardinals run defense is also something you can attack. So look for them to do just that and set up some more play action for Stafford and hopefully keep him off his back. The Cardinals are a fast-paced offense. They ran 78 plays in both of their games versus the Rams this season. Just to put things in perspective for you, the NFL average is 63.3 plays per game. So they're well above that average. Player prop bets that I like, I touched on them a little bit earlier. Anytime touchdown for Rondale Moore, hammer Chase Edmonds, anytime touchdown, Zach Ertz, Cam Akers, and Odell Beckham. I like the player prop bets for both Kyler Murray and Matthew Stafford. As far as passing yards, Kyler's set at 255.5, Stafford at 274.5. Hammer the over in both of those. Receiving yard prop bets, I like Rondale Moore to hit his 16.5 yards. Odell is going to go over his 44.5 yards. I promise you that. And Christian Kirk's going to go over 50.5. That's a lot, but all he needs is one deep ball, and he's going to hit that. As far as rushing yards go, give me the over at 38.5 yards for Kyler Murray and the over at 32.5 yards for Cam Akers. That is way too low, guys. He's going to get some work in this one. He's looked fine. That Arizona run defense is, they're vulnerable right now. You can beat them. Injuries of note, LA Rams star safety Jordan Fuller. He had season-ending, I think he had surgery. I'm not sure, but he had a season-ending ankle injury last week, so he's out. Rams actually signed Eric Weddle off the street this week. So Fuller had been the green dot for this defense, meaning that he calls the shots. He's their defensive QB. And as soon as he went out, the Rams blew their 17-point lead last week. So he is very important to that defense. I would argue he's just as important, if not more important than Jalen Ramsey. But that's a huge, huge injury, another big blow for the Rams. We'll see what Eric Weddle can do. Sure, he's going to give them a bit of an energy boost and a moral boost, but a locker room boost. But I don't think he's going to be able to hold against some of these deep shots that the Cardinals are going to take. They have some speedsters on offense, and they're going to take some shots with Christian Kirk and Rondale Moore and try to get something over the top. So that's a huge injury. Can't be understated. Van Jefferson has a shoulder injury. He was actually downgraded to limited at practice yesterday. So that makes me a little bit nervous. If he is out, absolutely hammer the overs on Odell and Cooper Kupp. If he's in, temper expectations a little bit, but I still think a Van Jefferson under 100% bodes well for Cooper Kupp and Odell in that offense. So, and then just side note here, of course, I'm a publicist. I do a lot of work for the NFL. Part of my job is booking a press tour in the local Super Bowl market. And so this year I booked that in Los Angeles, and the former Rams legend that they gave me was Torrey Holt. And anyway, I was chatting with Torrey the other day, just kind of getting his 2 cents on this game and the Rams playoff hopes. And he feels very strongly about this offense and this team, and he thinks they can make a deep run. So for what it's worth, that is a very smart football mind telling me, and through me, I'm telling you guys, he sees something in this team, and that's coming from a guy who has won a lot of big games over his career. So he thinks they're going to make a run. He thinks Eric Weddle is going to give this team a huge boost on Monday night. And so shout out to Torrey Holt. I'm going to tag him in this clip and see if we can get a retweet or a like or a mention or something. So anyway, guys, that wraps it up for me. Good luck to all of you in fantasy. If you're still in fantasy football, good luck to all of those DFS players out there. And good luck to all of those gambling degenerates like myself. I'm going to go place a few player prop bets, drive to that Connecticut border, and get on FanDuel and make those bets right before this 4:30 Eastern time kickoff. All right, guys, good luck. Don't forget to subscribe right here. It's either here or here. I think it's here. Go ahead and subscribe. Go ahead and like the video. Give me some mentions. Give me a retweet. I'm going to tweet this out. My Twitter handle, again, is @FantasyUmpire. Please do give me a follow. Let me know what I can work on. Let me know what you guys like, what you didn't like. And we're going to keep the ball rolling. We'll do another show next week when all of the winners advance to the next round of the playoffs. All right. Thanks a lot, guys. Stay safe out there. Talk soon.